The agenda for today's session, we're going to discuss a little bit about why mat hazards, why do we choose the topic. We're going to, as I said, show a short video to outline some of those different issues. And then we'll be talking through some best practices to help overcome those. Then we'll be looking at the resources that you can use to help in your safety policy. And then as we go through, if you have questions, feel free to put those in on the chat and we'll address those at the end and finish up from there. So hopefully we'll keep it brief and let everyone get back to their day and we'll keep rolling from there. So the first slide here. So why discuss mat hazards? Why is it important? As I said at the beginning, it's about being proactive. It's about taking the necessary steps to make sure that injuries don't occur. And a quick Google search will tell you, but the average slip and fall settlement is between 10 and 50,000. Now, that's quite a wide range there. And I've heard numbers a lot north of 50,000 as well, coming from workers' comp claims, somebody tripped over and had a bad injury. And on top of that, there's all the other added costs. There's downtime, there's, overtime and extra things that you have to do if somebody does get injured on the job. And so we want to be mindful of those things and what can we do to prevent anything like that happening. Now, the other fact is that mats will always be a part of our workplace, and there's a tremendous number of them in the workplace. And so, we sometimes hear from clients who've maybe tried to take mats completely out of the workplace. And in my experience, it's never been successful. There's always been a point in time when mats have been introduced back in. So there's a lot of standing work being done. And in order to keep our workforce productive, we do need to provide them with anti-fatigue matting. And there's a way to do that that eliminates those safety concerns, which we're going to be going through today. So we feel it's a really important conversation to have. And lastly, you've probably heard me say it before, but mats are often overlooked. They're often not noticed until something happens. And then once something happens, they're the first thing to get blamed. So if somebody trips over, you'll be out there saying, where's the mat that caused the accident? And yet, when there's no accidents happening, there can be some pretty bad shape mats out on the floor still in operation that could be potential hazards. So we want to keep those in mind. That's why we brought this topic up today, and hopefully we'll get some value as we go. So next up, I'm just going to show a short video. It's about 2 minutes. And this is just a bit of background on this. It's basically a slideshow of different pictures that we've taken ourselves when we've been out visiting clients' facilities. So the idea is hopefully this prompts some thought. There'll be some things in here that you can relate to, maybe things that you haven't noticed before, but it's just to kind of outline the main safety concerns that we see and on a recurring basis. And then we'll kind of deep dive into each of those. So get the video started here for you. So that concludes the video on the mat safety hazards. Hopefully that helps to, as I say, provoke some thought about what we're going to be covering next as to best practices on how to address each of these. But those were actual real life pictures that we've seen, and we have a whole host of those kind of pictures. And what we're trying to do is overcome some of those issues and make it more of a proactive thing so they don't get to that stage. So as we go through, we're going to be talking about best practices, address each one of these bullet points. I'm going to stop my screen share for a minute so I can actually demonstrate a few things as well whilst we go through this. So first up is going to be the issue of overlapping or incorrectly sized mats. So obviously that's a very common one. You could see from those pictures how there was multiple mats in an area. And a lot of that is caused because manufacturing has become a lot more advanced. A lot of lean initiatives, 5S, things like that, have driven our workplaces to become complex. And in general, the matting industry is pretty standard. It's pretty set around rectangles, and you can get some modular systems, things like that, which have a place. But the main thing to think about there when there's overlapping or incorrectly sized mats is, let's start thinking in terms of what's the right shape and size for the area. So as you can see from the one behind me, this would be in a traditional work center, that doesn't have a custom mat. You may have like a 3x5 here, and maybe a 2x3 over on this side, and you have this trip hazard in the middle. So if you could think in terms of having one piece and eliminating those overlapping points, or even having bevels together, that's one way to do that, is by having a single piece mat. And with our mats, there isn't really any limitation on shape or size. It's really down to what is the maximum size that can physically be handled or something like that. So we can, the sky's the limit really on what we can make as far as shapes and sizes. So that issue really doesn't need to be there anymore if we start thinking in terms of one piece mats that fit the whole work cell, and you have the access points marked in yellow. The next one is bevels missing or incorrect or curling edges, and that's a common issue we see as well. And I just wanted to share with you a couple of examples on that. So one of the classic ones is just a traditional diamond plate mat, and the way that those are, you see it here. So the way that these are made, they're a two-part mat. There's a foam pad underneath with a PVC top surface, and the bevel system is made by just kind of waterfalling the PVC over the edge, as you see here. So what that tends to do is it means there's a very thin bevel, and over time with cart traffic, even heavy foot traffic, or even if it comes in contact with some sort of like brake fluid or coolant or something like that, it can end up with a lifting this edge or twisting this edge so that it becomes curled. So that's a really common one that you see with bevel issues. And in contrast to that, the way that we make our diamond plate, the Nitri-Tough, on a piece right here. So we actually attach a solid bevel. So instead of waterfalling that over the edge, the bevel is attached to the outside, and you get that solid bevel just like our 101 mats as well, so that are guaranteed not to curl. The other one that's often falls into this category is some sort of a drainage mat like you see here. And these bevels are very prone to coming off, and oftentimes they don't even have a bevel. So this can be often the issue with bevels. We obviously do drainage mats as well, that you can have the bevel bonded on, so it becomes a part of the mat, just like the Nitri-Tough is here. It's all a single piece as part of the mat. Same way with our 100 series, like you see here. This is actually bonded, so it becomes a part of the mat rather than something that's attached separately. And also with the 100 series mats and the Nitri-Tough, those the edges are covered in our warranty, so we guarantee that they won't curl up The next one's pretty obvious: visible damage, rips and tears. So as you're walking around or doing an inspection, just take a look. Is there something that's going to cause an operator to trip on that? You saw some in those pictures. Some mats have literally holes worn all the way through them. And so those are pretty easy to detect. And you just want to take a look at that. And one of the pictures that you saw in that as well was actually one of our mats where it had ripped in from the corner. And that's, it does happen. So we want to be mindful of those and flag them if we see them. And one thing with the 100 series mats is we have a repair kit. So where that tear was from the corner, we actually just sent the client an adhesive repair kit, and they can actually bond that section back together because the mat itself is still intact. It just had a rip. So you can actually bond that piece back together to prevent that from happening. The same as if, a large section of the mat is still in good shape, but there's one piece that's damaged, maybe a forklift hit it or something like that. You can actually just take that section and replace just a piece of it. So those are things to keep in mind with the visible damage. Is with the 100 series especially, you can do a lot of repair work with those as well if the rest of the mat is still in good shape. The next one is multiple or stacked mats, and I'm sure everybody is familiar with that. A new mat gets delivered and the old one stays in place and the new one goes on top, or the new one goes underneath and the old one on top, whatever way around happens. But it's really about kind of being the policeman, I guess, to make sure that that doesn't happen. The mats that we provide are guaranteed to not compress over time. So just make sure that the operators are aware that, this is a new mat for a reason. The old ones are going to be removed and disposed of. And then the other reason that happens a lot is, again, back to the traditional diamond plate mats. These type of mats, they have a PVC top surface, and then the foam that's used underneath is also PVC based foam. And over time, this compresses and loses its cushion. So the top of the mat may look perfectly intact and in good shape, but if you step on it, it's flat, it's lost its support. And so then mats tend to get stacked up just to give the operator a bit more support again, or a bit more cushion. So if they do go flat, they're ready for replacement. They need to be pulled and a new one needs to be brought in. Again, with our mats, as I said, they're covered in the warranty that they won't go flat and compress over time. So you don't have that issue with ours. But if you see a stacked mat, just say something, make sure that it gets taken care of. Obviously, you can't have a bevel correctly if you've got more than one mat on top of each other. The next one is incorrect mat for the application, and it's a common one, especially when there's a lot of different applications in the same facility. So you may have a number of different mats being used throughout the facility, and then they can kind of get combined and mixed around, and one pulled from different areas, and all of a sudden you have mats that are, meant for dry areas in an oily area or something like that. So just be mindful of those applications, and speak to your representative when you're designing a new mat for a cell. Make sure you've provided all the details of what's going to be happening in those areas so that the right mat can be brought in. And then if you do see that happening again, you have to make sure that those mats are getting moved back into the correct areas. And one thing that I'll be sharing with you later on is what we call our standard work instruction, and that helps to identify which mat to use in which area, and it's a document that you can actually distribute to your team as well. And then the next one is cords and cables. As you could see from some of those pictures, that's also a common one. Oftentimes there's air hoses, electrical cords, conduit, something like that going through work areas, and the traffic path has to be across that. So that can be a common one, and also a frustrating one to try and deal with. So with our mats, we can build in a cable cover. So what you can see here is actually a channel in the underside of the mat, and we can make this channel to whatever width it needs to be. And then you can actually have a completely flush top surface on the mat to eliminate any of those hazards, and then the cords just run underneath. If you do have a thicker cord, we can actually do this a double height so that you can cover a cord up to about 1.25 inches. So that's a great option for cable management. It keeps the top completely flush, eliminates that, and also keeps the cords nice and tidy underneath as well. So for those, we will be adding it to AcroSketch in the near future. At the moment, we have to manually add those, so you could just provide us with the dimensions and the location of the cable covers, and we can add those in as well. The next one is, or the last one, I should say, is about mats being sliding around on the floor. And that's also a common one. I think it's come up on other sessions we've had as well. So we have a couple of options for that. And I guess there's 3 things I wanted to say about that issue. The first thing is, if we go back to number 1 about mats being incorrectly sized, that's oftentimes when that becomes an issue. So as you can see from this particular mat, there's not really anywhere it can move. It's custom cut to the work area, and it's not going to move around because it's fit to the area. So that's often a good solution to that, is making sure that the sizing is correct and it fits the area. If you're in a cell with operations up both sides, we can go all the way to those edges, and then that means that there isn't really any option for it to move around. The second thing is, on smaller mats, if you have standalone 3x5, 2x3 or something like that, we can apply our grip coat non-slip backing, which you can see on the back of this one. So it's a tacky backing that we apply here when we make the mat, and that just grabs the floor and prevents it from moving around. So that's a great option as well if you have significant dust or machine waste or something like that that's prone to getting underneath the mat. The third thing is, you may need to actually tape these edges down around the outside edges to prevent it from moving, and B, to prevent any of that dust building up underneath. And if you do need to do that, we recommend a floor tape by Mighty Line, which is super heavy duty, and you can get it up to 6 inches wide. So you have a very nice wide application on there for the bevel, and it doesn't create any extra hazard. It just kind of becomes a part of the ramp as you go onto the mat. It's also yellow, so nice high visibility as well. So that kind of covers the best practices we wanted to share on those different issues. So I'll get my screen share back on and we'll keep going here. So some resources that we offer that you can use, help build into your safety programs. The first thing is a site inspection checklist. This is available on our website. You can download it from the resources section. And this is what it looks like. It's pretty simple, but you can use it as an ongoing checklist. And so you put in your information up here, and then how this works is down the left-hand side here, you would just jot down the location of the mat or the machine name or something like that. So it could be, machine A or work center 3 or whatever it might be. And then as you come across, you can just do a check mark or an X if any of these things are present. So, and each one of these is what we've just covered off. So as you come across here, you would just make a mark on any. And then the additional comments, that's something that is also important as you're doing inspections, is to get feedback from the operator, because there may be things that are not obvious to, visually obvious, that is a concern to the operator. It could be things like, I work right here, but I'm always stepping on and off the mat, and you can't just see that by looking. So get some comments from the operator. You can also include those in here. And then as you work your way down, you could do it on a rotation. You could do, a section of the plan every week or every month or whatever works with your schedule, and just make sure that they're all getting a regular visual inspection. And then you can just kind of highlight the ones that actually do need replacing. And then you've got at least some documentation then that they have been inspected, and you're keeping on top of it should anything happen. So that, again, is available on our website from the resources tab. You can download and print them off. The next resource, and many of you have probably seen this, but I'll show you again, the AcroSketch tool, also on our website. And that's right here, acromat.com/acrosketch. So this is for designing any mats that you need to replace, getting them to the correct shape and size. You click the configure button. I'm just going to go right into the custom. You can also do, custom squares and rectangles here, but if you jump into the custom, you can actually just draw a mat to any shape that you might need. And you can actually drag these lines in 1-inch increments to get it exactly to the required dimensions. As you can see, those are all moving as I'm dragging those lines. You can add your safety borders up the top here with the paint bucket. So any access points you have, you might want to add the yellow borders there. You can also do cutouts. So if there's a work center in the middle of the cell that you want to account for, you can actually make a cutout in the mat as well. And then as you proceed on down, here's all your options for the different types of mats. So you can choose your mat type, your color. Your border is obviously already chosen because we chose yellow up above. Your surface, if you need drainage holes, you can add that in. The grip coat non-slip backing, you can choose that here if you need that. You can plug in an area name, company name, and area name. Any special instructions, acknowledge that you've got the dimensions how you want, and you can see an instant quote right here, which you can also print that to either to your printer or to a PDF. So it has all the details right here, as well as the price and the image. So that becomes an instant quote for any custom mats that you might need to replace. And then the last one I mentioned earlier, the standard work instruction. So this is a template that we can help you get set up with as well. So when there's a lot of different types of mats being used, we can usually streamline that down. Oftentimes we'll count up to 10 to 15 different types of mats being used in a facility, and we can streamline that down to about 3 to 5. So that's what this document is for. It's just to have something that you can share with your teams to say, we've assessed the areas and these are the mats that we recommend. So you can have the mat type, some supporting pictures, and you can document this however you want to say, this is the application where this mat should be used. Maybe you have ESD areas, and that could be a different one. You may have welding areas, which could be a different one again. You could build in the ongoing assessment here and have that as part of the work instruction as well. And then you can have some sign-offs for whoever would be the right people to sign off on a document like this. This is very flexible. It can be really tweaked to whatever is right for your company. We can even provide this for your own. You can put it on your own template as well. But it just helps to make sure that as we go forward, it's kind of like a line in the sand, that as we go forward, we know that the right mats are going to be used in each area, and there's going to be a consistent look and feel as we move forward. So